The smell of charcoal and my dad's disappointment filled the backyard. It was the annual Peterson family barbecue, and like clockwork, Dad had turned it into another lecture about my failed life choices. "Maya, honey," Mom chimed in, adjusting her pearl necklace, "your father's right. This food truck phase has gone on long enough. You're 32. When are you going to settle down with a real career?" My brother Derek smirked from his lawn chair, beer in hand. "Remember when she wanted to be a veterinarian? Then a teacher? Now she's playing restaurant owner." He gestured dismissively at the grill. "At least the food's decent." My sister-in-law Jennifer nodded enthusiastically. "Derek's promotion to senior partner means we can finally afford the house in Westchester. That's what real success looks like, Maya." I kept my focus on the grill, carefully turning each burger. The meat sizzled perfectly, restaurant quality, though they'd never admit it. "These are almost ready," I said quietly. "That's exactly the problem," Dad continued, his voice rising. "You're content with almost ready everything. Your food truck, your life, your relationships. When I was your age, I had already built Peterson Construction from the ground up." Uncle Robert joined the chorus from across the patio. "Tom's right, Maya. I see your little truck downtown sometimes. Quaint. But you can't live on quaint forever." Aunt Patricia set down her wine glass with more force than necessary. "We just worry about your future, dear. What happens when this food trend passes? You'll have nothing to fall back on." "The truck makes enough to pay my bills," I said, plating the burgers with practiced precision. Each one perfectly cooked, garnished with house-made pickles and artisanal sauce. Derek laughed. "Barely scraping by isn't success, sis. I made more in bonuses last month than your truck probably makes all year." "Your cousin Danny just got promoted to vice president at Goldman Sachs," Mom added as if reading from a script. "Remember him? He used to be so unfocused in college. But look at him now, six-figure salary, corner office, respect." I handed Dad his burger first, knowing he preferred medium well with extra onions. Even after everything, I remembered these details. "Here you go, Dad." He took it without thanks, continuing his lecture. "Maya, I'm not saying this to be cruel, but you're living in a fantasy world. Running a food truck isn't building a future. It's prolonging childhood." The burger was perfect and we both knew it. The meat was premium grade, seasoned with my signature blend, cooked to exact specifications. But Dad barely tasted it, too focused on his point. "Look at the Henderson's daughter," Jennifer added helpfully. "She started as a nurse, went back for her MBA, and now she runs the hospital's entire administrative division. That's a career trajectory." "Maya doesn't even have health insurance," Derek announced as if I wasn't standing right there. "Still using the emergency room like a college kid." That stung because it wasn't true, but I didn't correct him. Let them believe what they wanted. Uncle Robert waved his beer toward my food truck parked in the driveway. "I mean, the truck looks professional enough, but food service is a young person's game. Your back won't handle those hours forever. Plus the stress," Aunt Patricia added. "Restaurant failure rates are astronomical. 90% close within the first year." "Actually, it's about 60%, I corrected quietly, handing her a burger. "Whatever the number," Dad interrupted, "it's too high for someone your age to be gambling with. You need stability, security, a real career with growth potential." I served the rest of the family, each plate carefully arranged. The corn was perfectly grilled with herb butter. The potato salad was homemade with red potatoes and fresh dill, and the burgers were restaurant quality. But presentation meant nothing if they'd already decided I was failing. "Remember your friend Lisa from high school?" Mom continued. "She just bought a house in Scarsdale. Married to a doctor, 2 beautiful children, and she volunteers at the museum on weekends. That's a fulfilling life." "Maya's fulfillment comes from flipping burgers," Derek said mockingly. "Very philosophical." The family laughed and I felt my cheeks burn. Not from anger. I'd learned to manage that years ago. From sadness that they still saw me as the family disappointment. "I enjoy the work," I said simply, cleaning the grill with methodical strokes. "And I'm good at it." "Being good at something doesn't make it worthwhile," Dad replied. "I'm good at watching football, but it doesn't pay the mortgage." Uncle Robert raised his beer. "Exactly. Tom, remember when Maya wanted to open that catering business? We tried to explain the economics, but she was so stubborn." "That was different," I said, but they weren't listening. The food truck is just the latest version, Jennifer explained to her daughter who was playing nearby. Aunt Maya likes to try lots of different things, but she doesn't stick with the important ones. I felt my phone buzz in my apron pocket but ignored it. Probably another supply order confirmation or a catering inquiry. The truck had been busier than ever lately, but I'd learned not to share good news with my family. They'd find ways to diminish it. The thing is, Maya, Dad continued, settling into his favorite lecture tone, success requires sacrifice. I worked 16-hour days building this business. Your mother supported me through lean years. We made smart decisions and delayed gratification. Delayed gratification, Mom echoed meaningfully. Derek leaned forward. Dad's right. Jennifer and I lived in that tiny apartment for 3 years while I built my client base. Now look, we're closing on the house next month and I just made partner. That's impressive, I said and meant it. Derek had worked hard for his success. See, that's what we want for you, Dad said almost gently. But you have to want it too. You have to stop playing around with these hobby businesses and commit to something real. My phone buzzed again more insistently. I pulled it out to silence it, glancing at the screen. It was Charles Morrison from Morrison Holdings. Strange. Why would he be calling on a Sunday? Maya, are you even listening? Mom asked, exasperated. Sorry, just checking the time. I slipped the phone back into my pocket. What were you saying? We were discussing your future, Dad said firmly. And I have a proposition. Peterson Construction is expanding into commercial development. I could use someone to manage client relations, someone I trust. Everyone looked at me expectantly. This was clearly something they'd discussed before. It would mean giving up the food truck, Dad continued, but you'd have a real salary, benefits and room for advancement. What do you say? I looked around the circle of faces, all hopeful, all certain they knew what was best for me. They meant well in their way. They just couldn't see past their own definitions of success. Can I think about it? I asked. Of course, Dad said, relief in his voice. But don't take too long. Opportunities like this don't wait forever. My phone started ringing. I apologized and stepped away from the group, walking toward the house for privacy. The caller ID showed Charles Morrison again. Hello, Mr. Morrison. How can I help you? Why, I've been trying to reach you. I hope you don't mind me calling on Sunday, but I have news that couldn't wait. Charles Morrison was the president of Morrison Holdings, the investment group that owned half the commercial real estate in our area, including Riverside Country Club, Dad's pride and joy. I'd met him 6 months ago when he'd tried my food truck and loved it. Not at all. What's going on? The deal went through. We just finalized the acquisition of Culinary Concepts Group. As of Monday morning, you officially own 15 restaurants, including the 4 locations at Riverside. My heart stopped. We'd been negotiating for months, but I hadn't expected the paperwork to be completed so quickly. The restaurants at Riverside? I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. That's right. The steakhouse, the casual dining room, the pro shop cafe and the event space. Plus the 11 locations downtown. Maya, you just became one of the largest restaurant owners in the tri-state area. I leaned against the house, processing the magnitude. Morrison Holdings had approached me after seeing the success of my food truck. They'd been looking for a restaurant operator with proven talent and fresh vision. The negotiation had been complex. They'd provide the capital and real estate, I'd provide the operational expertise and brand development. The total investment is $4.2 million, Charles continued. Your ownership stake is 60%, with options to buy us out completely within 5 years. I looked back at my family, still debating my failure around the picnic table. They had no idea that my hobby food truck had attracted serious investors, that I'd spent the last year developing business plans and profit projections, that I'd been quietly building toward this moment. Maya? You there? Yes, sorry. This is incredible news. Thank you for making it happen. Thank you for trusting us with your vision. I'll have the contracts messengered over tomorrow, but I wanted to call personally. When Maya? Your dad's a member at Riverside, isn't he? He is. Well, he's going to be seeing a lot of changes. You mentioned wanting to upgrade the dining experience there. Now it's your call. We hung up and I stood alone by the house trying to absorb what had just happened. In one phone call, I'd gone from food truck owner to restaurant empire CEO. The financial security my family had been lecturing me about? I'd just achieved it in a way they couldn't imagine. But the sweetest part wasn't the money or the recognition. It was knowing that Dad's beloved country club, where he'd been a member for 20 years, where he hosted business dinners and golf tournaments, now belonged to his disappointing daughter. I walked back to the group, my expression carefully neutral. They were still discussing my future as if I were a teenager who needed guidance. So Maya, Derek was saying, Dad's offer is really generous. Client relations would be perfect for you, less stressful than food service. Much better hours, Jennifer added. You could actually have a social life. And benefits, Mom emphasized. Real benefits, not just hoping you don't get sick. I sat back down listening to them plan my life. Dad's phone sat on the picnic table next to his plate, silent and unsuspecting. I appreciate everyone's concern, I said finally. Really? And Dad, your offer is very thoughtful. But, Dad asked, hearing something in my tone. But I think I'm going to stick with restaurants. The disappointed sighs were immediate and predictable. Maya, Uncle Robert started, we've been through this. Dad's phone rang. Everyone stopped talking as he glanced at the caller ID. His eyebrows rose slightly. It's the country club. Wonder what they want on a Sunday. He answered with his usual authority. Tom Peterson speaking. The voice on the other end was loud enough for everyone to hear. It was Marcus Webb, the club manager, a man I'd met several times during the acquisition negotiations. Mr. Peterson, I'm calling about some exciting changes at Riverside. We've just been acquired by Morrison Holdings and there are some new policies I need to discuss with you. Dad looked confused. Acquired? I hadn't heard anything about that. Sir. The sale finalized this morning. We're now under new management and the dining facilities are being completely restructured. Restructured how? Dad's voice had an edge of concern. Well, sir, the new owner is implementing some significant upgrades. All 4 restaurant locations will be redesigned with a focus on farm-to-table cuisine and artisanal preparation methods. I felt my family's eyes turning toward me, but I kept my expression blank. The new owner? Dad repeated. Who bought the club? Actually, sir, just the restaurant operations. The new owner is quite accomplished. She started with a single food truck and impressed Morrison Holdings enough that they backed her expansion. Very impressive for someone so young. Dad's face was slowly changing color. A food truck owner? Sir. Maya Peterson, I believe. The business plan she presented was remarkable. She's transforming the entire dining experience. Molecular gastronomy techniques, locally sourced ingredients, revolutionary service models. The phone slipped in Dad's hand. Every face around the table was staring at me now. Did you say Maya Peterson? Dad asked weakly. That's right. She'll be implementing changes immediately. The casual dining room reopens Wednesday with her signature menu. I have to say, Mr. Peterson, you must be incredibly proud. Your daughter is about to revolutionize fine dining in this area. Dad looked at me across the table, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. She's sitting right here actually, he managed. Wonderful. Could you put her on? I have some questions about the wine list renovation. With trembling hands, Dad held out the phone to me. The entire family watched in stunned silence as I took it. Hi, Marcus. How are the preparations going? Fantastic, Maya. The kitchen renovation crew starts tomorrow, and the new equipment arrives Wednesday. Are you still planning to handle the opening night service personally? Absolutely. It's going to be special. I'm sure it will be. When Maya? Your father's membership includes complimentary access to the new tasting menu program. We'll make sure he gets the VIP treatment. I looked at Dad as I spoke. That's very thoughtful. I'll make sure he knows he's always welcome. We discussed a few more details before hanging up. When I set the phone down, the silence was deafening. Derek was the first to speak. You own the restaurants at Riverside? As of this morning, yes. How is that possible? Mom asked, her voice small. Morrison Holdings approached me 6 months ago. They'd been watching the food truck business and liked what they saw. We spent months developing the expansion plan. Dad was staring at his burger. The same burger he'd barely noticed while lecturing me about failure. 6 months. The due diligence process was extensive. Financial projections, market analysis, operational assessments. They don't invest $4.2 million lightly. Jennifer's fork clattered to her plate. $4.2 million? That's their investment. My stake is 60% ownership with options to expand. Uncle Robert set down his beer carefully. Maya, are you saying you're a millionaire? On paper, yes. But more importantly, I'm doing what I love while building something sustainable. The family exchanged glances trying to process this reversal. Just minutes ago they'd been planning my escape from the restaurant business. Now they were learning I'd just become one of the largest restaurant operators in the area. Why didn't you tell us? Mom asked. Would you have believed me? The honesty of that question hung in the air. We all knew the answer. Dad picked up his burger and took a real bite this time, chewing slowly. This is exceptional, he said quietly. Thank you. The seasoning, the technique. This isn't amateur work. I've been perfecting it for years. He nodded, understanding dawning. And the Morrison people, they saw this quality. They saw the potential to scale it. The food truck was my proof of concept. Consistent quality, efficient operations, customer loyalty. They wanted to replicate that across multiple locations. Derek leaned forward. So when you said you were happy with the truck, I was building the foundation for something bigger. Every service, every customer interaction, every menu refinement. It was all preparation. And Mom started then stopped. You were being protective, I said gently. I understand that. But you were also assuming I didn't have a plan. Aunt Patricia spoke up hesitantly. Maya, honey, we had no idea you were so strategic about this. Bez, I didn't tell you. I learned early that it was easier to let you think what you wanted than to defend every decision. Dad was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then he looked up at me with an expression I hadn't seen before. Respect mixed with regret. Maya, I owe you an apology. Dad. No, let me finish. I've been treating you like a child who doesn't understand the world. But you've been building a business empire while I was lecturing you about getting a real job. The admission clearly cost him, and I appreciated the courage it took. You weren't wrong about needing security and planning for the future, I said. You just didn't realize I was already doing those things. Derek shook his head in amazement. Sis, I had no idea you were so business-minded. I learned from watching Dad, actually. The importance of quality work, treating customers well, thinking long-term. Dad's expression softened. I just wanted you to be secure. I am secure. More than that, I'm excited about what comes next. What does come next? Jennifer asked. Expansion. Morrison Holdings wants to open 10 more locations over the next 2 years. We're also exploring franchising opportunities and possibly a food product line. Uncle Robert raised his beer again, this time in salute. Maya, I think I owe you a congratulations. We all do, Mom said, tears in her eyes. Honey, I'm so proud of you. And so sorry we didn't see what you were building. You see it now. That's what matters. Dad stood up and walked around the table to hug me, something he hadn't done in years. My daughter, the restaurant mogul, he said with genuine pride. Your daughter, the chef, I corrected. Everything else is just business. As the sun set over the backyard, my family peppered me with questions about the restaurants, the expansion plans, and the investment process. For the first time in years, they were genuinely interested in my work instead of trying to redirect it. But the real victory wasn't the money or the recognition. It was Dad's phone ringing at exactly the right moment, forcing them to see what I'd been building all along. Sometimes the best revenge isn't planned, it's just perfect timing. Later, as we cleaned up the barbecue, Dad pulled me aside. Maya, about that job offer. Dad, you don't have to. I'm withdrawing it, he said with a smile. I think you're a little overqualified for client relations. Just a little? Okay, massively overqualified. But Maya. Yeah. Next family barbecue, you're in charge of all the food. And this time we're actually going to listen when you talk about your work. I hugged him again, tasting victory and charcoal smoke in the evening air. Sometimes the sweetest success is the kind your family never sees coming.